This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Baby, Miami and Kansas City. Are you ready?
I am ready. I am looking very forward to this football game. This might be the best game that has been played this year. So I am very excited. In fact, I'm very excited for this week. You have Philly and Dallas, Cincinnati and Buffalo. I mean, there are a lot of games, even Seattle and Baltimore. But yes, very much looking forward to the Dolphins and the Chiefs kicking off Sunday.
So what is it that they've done to the Kansas City Chiefs in the two games that they've played? Because I know he got like 300 yards still in that first game, but they only scored 19 points. They didn't score a ton of points. So, and I know that they were talking about it, that people are going to see what the Broncos are doing and that others are going to try to copy it. So what did the Broncos do to slow the offense of the Chiefs?
Well, in the first game, the Chiefs slowed the offense of the Chiefs because they had over 400 yards. Mahomes threw for over 300. He played what they bogged down the red zone. You know, they had a ball that got tipped in the air. It was a throwaway that got tipped up and got picked off in the end zone. And then they ran one of the worst fake field goals you'll ever see in your life on a like what would have been, I think, like a 24-yard field goal or something. So the first game was more like just genuinely really self-inflicted weird stuff, but they moved the ball all night long. On Sunday, that was a combination of Denver did a really nice job of being able to make Mahomes hold the ball. They didn't blitz a ton. They dropped a lot of guys. And the Chiefs just were horrific in the game. I mean, another game, 5 turnovers in the game. Mahomes obviously was ill, but I don't use that as an excuse. He played atrocious football. They also got away from the running game. Like they've had 2 games this year they've lost, and in both of those games, Isaiah Pacheco hasn't had 10 carries, and in every game they've won, he's at least had 12. He had 8 carries. He was running fine. He had 5 yards an attempt. They just stopped using him. I think, look, at some point. And Travis Kelce on his podcast this morning blasted the daylights out of their offense. Like it's wrong routes being run. It's dropping the ball. And that's happened in spots all year, but they've just overcome it. It culminated and came to a head in Denver, along with some really poor play from their quarterback.
I actually think the Dolphins defense is turning the corner the last couple of weeks. I didn't want to count the New York Giants and Carolina, right? Because like you're playing shitty teams.
Yeah.
But then you started to see they actually caused a lot of problems for Philly. And then there were a lot of calls that weren't made in that game. It was probably one of the worst ref games I've ever seen in my life. I didn't think it was that bad. And then somebody put a tape together of all the calls that were missed in that game. And it was pretty irresponsible on behalf of the NFL. I would hope that they find the shit out of those refs. But they actually didn't play that bad in the Eagles game if you watched it. And then, this past week against, obviously, with the Patriots, and Chubb is playing better. Now they got Ramsey back. Now they're going to get X back. They held him back last week from returning just to kind of take precaution. I think things are going to get better with those 2 corners out there because it will allow them to do it. Javon Holland he's out of concussion protocol. Right. The coach said today, so he's going to be back. I think the Dolphin defense is now going to start playing its best football from here on out. And if I tell you that X and Ramsey are going to play against Kansas City, so that'll be the first team to face those 2 guys, and then you get Holland back, what kind of problems does that cause for Kansas City, or can it?
Well, I mean, certainly they're very good players. In the case of Ramsey, a great player, and Holland, very good. And Ramsey and Howard, look, I mean, he's maybe not who he once was, but he's still a savvy vet. It's weird because it certainly makes Miami better. The Chiefs are weird in the sense, though, that they want to go to Kelce and they want to be able to get the ball across the middle of the field. Like, they're not going to go outside all game long. Like Miami, they use a ton of motion. So they're going not quite as much as McDaniel, but they use a lot of it. And they use it in the same way to get guys open, scheme them open. And they have to, because unlike Miami, they don't have the receivers. I mean, the Chiefs receivers are a tire fire outside of Rashee Rice. So I think it does matter. And if you're Miami, you obviously know Kelsey's a huge part of this. I actually expect in this game that the Chiefs are going to try to run the ball a lot. Like that has been when they've had games like they had against Denver. If you look at their track record the following week, they usually make a very concerted effort to get the screen game going, to get Kelsey going, and to run the football and to simplify the way they play. Last year, they lost a game to Indianapolis. It was one of the worst losses I've ever seen that team have. The following week, they came out. They played a Bucs team that offensively is whatever, but had a very good defense, and they ran for 186 yards. They just lined up in 2 tight end personnel and tried to simplify it. I think that's what they're going to do to some extent this game. I'm not saying they're going to run for $186, but I think they're going to try to simplify the offense, go more 2 tight end, run the ball a little bit more, play some more screen game, stuff like that.
Because of Jalen and X being out there, you can leave them on an island, and because the receivers aren't necessarily frontline guys on the outside, Kohu is actually maybe their most I think Kohu might be the most physical corner the Dolphins have had in 20 years, actually, to be quite honest. That's how impressive the kid is. He is physical. He'll tackle you. He'll hit you. Now, he is handsy. So he reminds me of remember the corner opposite of in Seattle with the was it Browning? The guy was
Brandon Browner.
Browner. Remember, he was a good corner, but he always would pick up fouls because he was a physical corner, right? So he had to rely on that. Kohu's like that. Can you bracket Kohu with Holland? Because I kind of get that's what you got to do against Kelsey. You're not going to. Fangio's not the guy that's going to put Jalen Ramsey and shadow a guy. That's not what he does. He leaves people where they're at, and they got to play the zone the way they do. Yep. So the only way you can bracket Kelsey would be with your slot corner following him, and then Holland over the top on top of all of that. Can that be done? Is that something you think could end up happening?
It's possible. Look, I would say this. Travis Kelce's kind of like Miami's version of Tyreek Hill. You might be able to slow him down. He's going to get his yards. He's just going to. And it's the same reasoning. Miami's going to move Hill all over the place. They're going to put him in spots. You can't double him all the time. And Kansas City does the same thing with Kelsey. I mean, they'll line him up all over the field. They'll line him up in the backfield. They'll do everything. They will make sure he doesn't get jammed at the line. They'll put him in all different kinds of formations. Now, I do think, look, in a perfect world, you're bracketing him as much as humanly possible. You're certainly not going to go with the Brandon Stanley method of playing nobody in the middle of the field and then just watching him catch a ball, turn around, run for 40 yards every play. I don't think that Fangio is doing that. Look, to me, this game, in a lot of ways, and I know this isn't the sexy thing, but I think it's the accurate thing. Which team's defensive front can handle the other team better at the line of scrimmage? Miami's a very good rushing team. The offensive line has been in flux. Armstead looks like he may be back this week. That'll help. The Chiefs this year.
Connor too.
Right. I know Wynn right now is on IR, but they're getting some guys back.
Yeah.
Can they, not even just in pass protection, but in the run game as well, can Miami's offensive line win that battle? The Chiefs have one of the biggest strengths is the fact they can get after your quarterback. Karlaftis has 6 sacks. Jones is 5.5. Dan is 5.5. They blitz here and there. And Miami on the other side of the ball has a very good front seven with guys like Phillips and Chubb and Seiler and Wilkins and so on and so forth. Which team up front can move the other team more? Because to me, if Tua has time, if Mahomes has time, even with the receivers, they're going to throw the ball well. They just are. They're too talented. The NFL rules are slanted in a way where guys are going to get open. I mean, Mahomes has had crappy receivers all year long. He's third in the league in passing yards. I mean, they're going to throw the ball, right?
He's also great.
Right. That's my point, right? He's going to turn Justin Watson into some guy who can have 800 yards. So to me, which quarterback has more time and is less pressured, and then which team can get the ground game going. Maybe not even big yardage, but just efficient yardage. 5 yards on 1st and 10, stuff like that. I think, to me, whoever does that better probably wins the game.
I think there's not Kansas City's already going to do that better. Tua's not about running around buying extra time. Mahomes does that, and he does that very well.
Miami gets the ball out of his hands very quickly.
Yeah, Tua's playing with fire by doing that because he doesn't have Mahomes' athleticism. So he's been very disciplined this year about getting rid of the football. Mahomes will win and kill him in that area because that's what he does for a living. He's the magic man in that sense, that if the initial play is not there, then he is maybe the best in the NFL at buying you that extra time to make that extra play. So
Tua gets rid of the ball as fast as anybody.
Yes,
and that's where
there's no comparison. But
that's what I mean. So, like,
buy the extra time to make the extra play, that's Mahomes all the way, dude.
No, right. But my point is just which quarterback is more affected by the other team's front four. Like, like in this game, Steve Spagnuolo, the one thing about Kansas City is similar to Cincinnati in this regard defensively. They will throw every coverage imaginable in this game. They will roll. They will spin the wheel. That's what they do. Like, so, and to kind of give an example of what I'm saying, there are certain teams that will sit in the same defensive alignment 80% of the time. Cover 3, maybe they mix in some cover 1. There are teams like the Bears. They play quarters almost every play on defense. Like that's how they play. The Chiefs are not going to do that. It is going to be the Chiefs move their safeties all over. They disguise. Like that's one thing I'm very interested in this game. Tua is a very smart quarterback. Spagnuolo is very good at disguising coverages, and they've never seen each other before. Like in this game, how quickly does Tua figure this out? I remember watching Josh Allen years ago against Kansas City in the first couple times he played Spagnuolo, and he really struggled with it. On the flip side, Burrow had no problem with him. So, sometimes the great quarterback can just overcome it. I really do think this game, though, is a lot of who can, with their defensive front seven, affect the other team. Because look, both teams have good corners. Both teams have elite weapons. Of course, Miami has 2. The Chiefs have 1. Both teams are well coached. It's going to be, to me, about the margin. And, of course, look, the number one thing is turnovers. And that is one area. Miami's had some. I know, Tua had a couple this week. The Chiefs have been a mess turning the football over. They've turned it over in every game this year except for the Minnesota game. If they turn the ball over in this game, they will lose. How clean do both of these teams play? That's the other part of this. I mean, whoever wins the turnover battle historically in any game has a huge advantage. This game, I think it even has more importance.
What are you picking?
I've gone back and forth on this, man. On one hand, there's a part of me that says, I think this is just one of those games where Kansas City comes out and shows why they're Kansas City. I mean, in some ways, to be honest, and I said this before the Eagles-Dolphins game, I thought the worst thing that happened to the Dolphins was the Eagles lost to the Jets. I think in some ways, Kansas City's performance in Denver, like if you're a Dolphins fan, you wish they would have won by 10, right? And they would have played like crap and they would have won. Like, I think in some ways, that is just such a motivating force for this team. I mean, I've watched every snap of them for years. Like, when they play games like that, they tend to come back the following week and play lights out. That's just how they've been. I think this game is a one-score game either way. I will take Kansas City from the standpoint that I said the same thing about Philly, so I'm going to be consistent. Philly knows how to win these big games. They've just done it.
They've been in it.
Kansas City has a long history of they win these games. They do. But I will say, I don't think Miami's outclassed in this game, and I would not be surprised if the Dolphins win it. I would not be surprised at all. I think Hill's going to have a big day, and I think it's going to come down to he'll play really well. Can Mostert have a big day with him? Can Waddle have a big day with him? If one of those guys can do it, I think they probably win. If they don't, and it's just Hill, I think the Chiefs probably overcome it and find a way.
And by the way, the Chiefs have to also look at this. Miami's in that stage of, they're good,
Yes.
Question is, can they be great like Philly, like Kansas City, like Buffalo? Those are their tests.
Yes.
If Miami starts passing these tests,
then they get in that group.
And if Miami beats Kansas City, Kansas City has to look at it and say, we need to beat these guys, because they probably won't lose another game except maybe the Bills game. So we're going to be in the middle of fighting with them for the home field advantage.
Right.
And so this game, we need the home field advantage and the tiebreaker against these guys, because that's what is going. It's going to be Buffalo, Kansas City, or Miami winning the AFC overall for home field advantage. And this is one of those deciding games for, that's the fortunate part for Miami, that the Philly game didn't hurt them in that sense. Buffalo did, but you have one more to make up, and you still have the Kansas City game. So those are two huge conference games that can give you the edge for home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So there's a lot riding on this game.
You're right. And I'll be very honest with that. I think in that sense, this is a much bigger game for Miami, because if you're the Dolphins, you're a younger team, you haven't been there. To me, them playing in Miami in the playoffs is more important than Kansas City playing in Kansas City. Amen. I mean, if the Chiefs have to go on the road in a playoff game,
they've been there.
They can do it. If you're the Dolphins, the last place you want to go is to Arrowhead when it's 10 degrees in January. Like you want to, and for Buffalo, like I always think in general, warm weather teams would rather be home anyway. Like it's just, you're more used to that. I think for Miami, it's also much bigger in the sense that the Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. That division's over. For Miami, you're still trying to pull away from Buffalo, and you might get a break, because I will tell you this: the one game I'm very confident in picking, Cincinnati is going to beat the brakes off Buffalo on Sunday night. That game's coming. Like, I don't know how many Dolphins fans here watched the Bengals 49ers game.
He's on a roll the last couple of weeks, bro.
The Bengals are back. Okay. And the Bills needed Chris Godwin not to locate a Hail Mary to beat Tampa. Like, the Bengals are going to win that football game. So if you're Miami and you win this game and that comes to fruition, like, you're 2 up on Buffalo, and you all of a sudden are in a spot where, like, you're really in good position. I will say that I do think it's a bigger game for Miami, but for Kansas City, it's an important game. And I think you will see both teams come out and play very well this week. I would be very surprised and frankly disappointed in either one of them if they go out and lay an egg this weekend.
Yeah, I think Miami's going to play a great game this week. I really do. I think they're kind of they're going to put it together this week. I think that's what's going to end up happening. Dude, how shocked were you? Developments from Las Vegas last night. I mean, you had to have been shocked that Josh McDaniels got fired. I mean, the greatness of Josh McDaniels, the things he's accomplished both in Denver and now with the Raiders.
Yes.
How shocked are you?
I saw it at like 12:30 in the morning before I went to bed. And I just made sure that it was the actual Adam Schefter account. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Good night. Like, that was my level of that franchise has been such just a pungent disaster now for how many years running? Like, he lasted a year and a half, and it was probably a year and a half too long. Right. So now you go back to this whole thing, like, all right, now they got to go interim. They're not going to hire Antonio Pierce because they're the Raiders. I don't care if he goes undefeated. Like, they're not going to do it. And now how much money are they going to throw Jim Harbaugh? Because God knows that's the next conversation. Like, hey, Jim, you might want to get the hell out of Michigan right about now. How much money do you want? And then the Bears are going to say, hold on, Jim, hold on. We'll throw more money at you. And you played here. Remember that? The problem for the Raiders is right now, other than the fact there's no state income tax in Nevada, who the hell wants to go there? Right. I mean, if you're an accomplished coach, you're lining up to go coach especially first of all, you're in a division with Mahomes. Like that right there, you're like, I'm good. Secondly, you have Mark Davis as your owner. You really that's the dream scenario here, and Jimmy Garoppolo is your quarterback. Like that's what you're looking to do. I mean, say whatever you want about the Bears. I'd go to the Bears 1,000 times over. They're probably going to get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Like, I'd take one of those guys in a heartbeat over the situation. Like, I just think the Raiders are what they are. I'm not surprised they're a disaster. They've been a disaster my entire life, and this is just the latest chapter to it.
Dude, it's like the son is an extension of the old man.
It's incredible.
You know, like, and I always want to preface this every time I say this because I'm old enough to remember. Please, let's never loop in young Al Davis with old Al Davis. You know, old
no,
Al, we're all going to get old, and we're all going to be over the hill at one point, and we're all not going to be able to do the things that we normally did, whatever it is that you do. I don't give a shit at what it is. Scaling fish, broadcasting, you're a policeman, you're a politician. I shouldn't say a politician. You can die literally in politics because that's what Feinstein did, right? She kind of died. Anyway, so the bottom line is the early Al Davis is one of the 5 most important people in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
That's not up for discussion, okay? Really? If you don't know enough of the history of football, I can't help you. But Al Davis is one of the 5 most important people in the history of the NFL. Your guy Hunt, by the way, is one of the other 5 guys. Yeah. But anyway, that's another conversation. But the back end of Al Davis's career, when he was too old,
was a train.
When he was, timing a Maryland a lineman named Campbell running oh yeah, you'll be a first rounder. Let's go. You know, that Al Davis was unfortunately off the wheels. It was a joke. And the son is exactly the duplicate of the latter part of Al Davis, dude. It's the same buffoonery that we've been watching by the last 20 years of Al Davis to now.
By the way, on a side note, because it just happened, they are benching Jimmy Garoppolo for the rest of the season and playing Aiden O'Connell. So there you go. So the Raiders are just in full bloom. And who tweeted it? Because I'd like to give them some credit. Somebody reported out there, and I'll find out what I'm saying. Ian Rapport. Ian Rapport says, ask the Raiders source why the benching. Answer, quote, he's our best quarterback. That's good. So Jimmy Garoppolo got paid $72 million, I believe it was, without looking, $72 million to play 6 games for the Raiders. And he's been usurped by Aiden O'Connell, who got sacked 6 times by the same player in one game and had multiple turnovers. The Raiders might not win another game. Just tossing that out there.
I think that's the plan.
Yeah, I do too. Here's the good news for everybody involved. The Dolphins still have to play the Raiders, and the Chiefs see them twice. So there you go. You'll lock down 3 wins right there for those 2 teams. There it is. That is the Raiders in all their glory right there.
Well, you just added more reasons why important on Sunday morning because everybody's got an easy win with the Raiders left. Kansas City's got does Kansas City have 1 or 2 games left?
2.
Wow, 2 gimmies.
They play them on Christmas at Arrowhead.
That's a game.
Merry Christmas to all the Chiefs fans out there. Merry Christmas as they beat them by 45 points.
Who's the backup for Mahomes?
Blaine Gabbert might get all the Christmas action.
Oh God, he's going to be playing the second half of that game, dude.
Yeah, it looks good. Oh my God, that is.
Mahomes will be in the second half. He'll be in the box with Kelsey and who?
Yeah, Taylor Swift, Brittany Mahomes, all be together, hanging out. It'd be good. It'd be nice. It'd be very wholesome. What's amazing is, can you imagine Devontae Adams this morning?
Oh my God!
You went there for the express purpose of, hey, I get to play with Derek Carr. We went to Fresno State together. Dude's there for 1 year. McDaniels runs him out of town. He does everybody else in the world. They trade him. They bring in Garoppolo. Garoppolo's so bad that everybody gets fired halfway through the year, and then they put in Aiden O'Connell for the rest of the season. You're Devontae Adams. You got to sit there and be like, great. I get to run routes for Purdue's finest for the next 9 weeks. And then what exactly? Then what are we doing? Like, obviously, you're trending toward drafting a quarterback, but I don't know. I mean, it's not like everybody's going to pretend like whoever gets drafted at quarterback's like this the unquestionable answer. It's about a 50% hit rate.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Like,
if you have a terrible franchise, you there's a good chance your quarterback's going to fail. And you'll never get to see how good he possibly could be.
It's like even if they draft a guy who's good, sure you're getting the best out of him in Vegas. I mean, it's just as usual at the Raiders. Always a good time.
It's a joke. All right, what do you got going on in Sports Illustrated so folks can check you out, my friend?
Quarterback rankings come out tomorrow. I did an all 22 piece today. Went up this morning. Let's see. We've got a one matchup to watch in every game that'll come out on Friday. That'll be fun to put together. It always is. And so those are the main things that are going on. I might write a column kind of previewing what should be a very interesting day in the AFC, both morning and night. We'll see if that gets done. But yeah, make sure to check it all out at si.com and, hit me up on Twitter. I'm always around.
There you go. Matt, as always, I appreciate you, my brother. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. We'll catch up next week. Enjoy the game on Sunday morning, my friend.
You too. Take care.
There we go. The great Matt Verderame. Appreciate him as always. Love it, love it, love it, love it.